Alright guys, welcome back. Let me take a swig of my Monster Rehab. Oh, it's so fucking delicious. Anyway, I got the peach tea and energy. That's not a plug for them, but free publicity for them, so, you know, good for you, Monster. Anyway, Geeks Line is a company. Let me show you down here. Geeks Line is a company that has produced anthologies for the history of different video game systems, and the first ever one they did was the N64 anthology. And I have not only that, but I have the custom Zelda N64 that was very limited. Only 5 were made by this French artist, and I backed it on Kickstarter. Then they came out with the PlayStation 1 anthology, and I have the PlayStation 1 system that was, I don't know how many were done there. I think there were a little bit more than 5, but I have the PlayStation 1 that was done by a French artist. And then I had recently the GameCube, which of the 3 I think is the best looking one system. It had the Star Fox all over it. So you'll see those when we do the game room, and you'll also see it in Retro Wolf 88's video when he interviewed me. But anyway, so recently they just released the Super Nintendo Anthology. Now, if you didn't back the Kickstarter, not the end of the world. I'm sure you can buy these on Amazon. But I have the Ultimate Edition, and this was the first one that did not come with a system, which I wasn't happy about, but it is what it is. And recently they just announced the Nintendo Anthology, which I just backed today on Kickstarter. So anyway, on the back here, Super Nintendo, for those who experienced it firsthand, the name still evokes power, graphical innovation, and eternity spent roaming virtual worlds of once unparalleled depth and beauty. It honors a great feat of technical ingenuity, one that would become emblematic of an illustrious brand, proud of its colors, origins, and traditions. The Super Nintendo sparked the imaginations of a whole generation. This reference book pays homage to a gem of the gaming industry like no other. So this is cool, and my name obviously is in here. We're going to do a little unboxing of this, and we're going to flip through some of the pages. I'll see what we got here. So there's 2 parts to this. Take it out of its slip cover here. So there's a slip cover, and there's 2 parts. So they separated it into software and hardware. So the hardware book here, we'll look at the back of it. It says, the Super Nintendo shone brightest in its exceptional game library, the story behind its creation, the quality of its architecture, and a vast array of accessories made it a truly unique console, fondly held in the hearts and memories of gamers the world over. Dedicated entirely to the console's history and hardware, this volume will take you on a journey through the machine's fascinating universe, revealing its lesser-known facets, laying out the technical specs, and sharing the incredible stories and anecdotes of those who played key roles in its ascendance. So, let's take a quick look. See if I can angle this as best I can down here, but my little camera here isn't the greatest. So we'll take a look. Let me move that over. Let's see, these are the table of contents here. So you got Hiroshi Yamauchi, the man behind the machine. A new revolution is afoot. Rise of the 16-bit machine. Super Famicom, the first announcements. War on the horizon. The American launch on page 34, which is probably where we'll go. The view from the top. A new era and the final hours, 96 and onward. And then hardware, look back at older consoles, technologies through 1990. The SNES versus its competition, a turning point for the whole industry. The inner workings, the 65C816 at the heart of the beast. The console's weaknesses, conclusion, and glossary. And then there's accessories, which is pretty cool, and some interviews. So, and then box art on page 208. So let's go to 34, and let's take a quick look at the American launch view from the top. So, I mean, this is a pretty well-made book. I'm really pumped to have this along with everything else. Look at this. Oh, Charles Martin. Okay, for a second I look like Michael Douglas, but it's not. It's the voice of Mario back in the day. Then we have some hardware. I mean, this is just a hell of a, you know, they do great work. They really do. And let's just quickly take a look at, is that? No, it's not who I thought it was. Bundles, this is cool. So you got the one-size-fits-all Famicom in Japan. Looked like or a PAL version. It looked like it came with Batman Forever. Donkey Kong Country Australian bundle. This is a PAL bundle with English text. Australian bundle with Super Mario All-Stars down here. Or I don't know where it is. I don't know what they're talking about. It looks like Donkey Kong to me. It says Donkey Kong Country, so. French bundle, Dutch bundle. And then here's another American bundle here. This came with Killer Instinct. That was towards the end of its lifespan, obviously. Yeah, the one I have is just a regular without a game, so there was no bundle with mine. But some other cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, it shows, you know, it shows Famicom Junior, Super Game Boy. I mean, it just goes into everything. It's so cool just to take a look at this from a historical perspective. And then box art, some Japanese box art. Here's Contra 3. I have this, by the way, complete. Donkey Kong Country 2. I have that. RoboCop vs. Terminator. Batman and Robin. And so on and so forth. So that is the hardware, brief hardware, and the software is a hell of a lot bigger. So on the back of the book, software-wise, it says 1,773. That's how many titles make up the famed Super Nintendo game library. It features more hits than you can shake a stick at, a rare few disappointments, and fantastic adventures shared by tens of millions of gamers worldwide. In this volume, dedicated entirely to the software and which complements the hardware volume, the authors went through the entire official catalog, game by game, including the collector's editions, the aftermarket titles released once the console's life cycle had already ended, and the canceled projects, a book of reference. This is pretty cool, man. And for the completionist in you, or the collector in you, oh, I got a publisher certificate of authenticity. That's pretty cool. This is copy number 387 out of 1,200. So 1,200 of these versions were made. Here's your editorial, introduction, game libraries, and it gave a rating. They reviewed each game, it looks like. And this is cool, man. It gives you a little snippet of each game, which is nice. I don't like that they did not separate, it looks like. They didn't separate the Japanese releases and the PAL releases. They just did everything in alphabetical order. So anyway, ABC Monday Night Football got a 2-star rating. I mean, this is so cool. They just have everything, you know. I mean, there's so many games that came out for the system, and it gives you literally, this is everything. This is everything that ever came out, and to have this is just, it's really awesome. Tales of Fantasia got a hell of a review here. I took a whole page out for it. Let's see what we got in the back. Once we get past the games here. Let's see. What are these pink? There are canceled games. So, apparently the Seventh Guest was canceled. Albert Odyssey Gaiden. Batman. The prototype of a beat-em-up starring The Dark Knight is an urban legend in its own right, known for being one of the worst Batman adaptations ever made. With little progress made and no official publisher to oversee the project, it's unknown whether it was a real game in development or just a demo meant to present a concept to potential investors. Batman Revenge of the Joker. When it comes to Batman in video games, there are many adaptations of the movies, cartoon series, and comics, but rarely any original storylines. Revenge of the Joker was meant to be a sequel to the first Batman film starring Tim Burton, or directed by Tim Burton, as well as a remake of a game released on the NES called Return of the Joker. But while the original was perfectly decent, the fully developed game managed to come up short in almost every aspect, though no official reason was given for its cancellation. Bobby's World. Based on the American cartoon series, this platformer allows you to take control of Bobby as he imagines fantastical worlds while cleaning his room. You take control of a new vehicle every 3 levels for a horizontal shooter stage, as was typical of the genre. Having been fully developed and boxed, there's much debate surrounding the game, with some claiming to have seen it on shelves at one point. If that's the case, there can't be any more than a dozen copies in circulation. Quite the mystery. And if I'm not mistaken, and I very well could be mistaken, let me see if I can find my phone. Here it is. If I go to this app, I think it lists Bobby's World as an actual game to collect for. I could be wrong. Let's take a look. If we go to SNES here, and we go to Wanted, yep, here it is. From High Tech Expressions, Bobby's World. So apparently it did exist. I don't know why they didn't. And let's see what it's worth. It's worth 12. If you can find one complete, it's worth $1,241. So apparently it's out there. It's just extremely rare. So there you go. Bulls versus Lakers in the NBA playoffs. I'm just going over ones highlighted that are pretty that would have been stuff that either I would have played or most people would play sports-wise. But released without issue for the Genesis in '91, the Super Nintendo version's development was trailing too far behind, which led it to it being canceled in favor of the next installment, Bulls vs. Blazers in the NBA playoffs. Interestingly, the cancellation was a source of some embarrassment to Nintendo, as the game was meant to be given out as a prize for a contest held in November '91 by Nintendo Power Magazine. That's hilarious. Converse Hardcore Hoops from Virgin Interactive. With no real evidence that the game was related to the shoe brand, Converse Hardcore Hoops, also known as Converse City Ball Tour, was meant to be a 3v3 street ball game on half-size courts. The defining characteristic was its graphics, with sprites put together from 15,000 drawings. Sadly, the game was canceled sometime after it was presented at E3 '95. So there's that. Let's see. Exo Squad, based on the animated series, this action game has you control a member of a mecha suit unit and was released for the Genesis in '95. A Super Nintendo version was in the works but never made it to shelves, despite having been previewed in the German magazine Nintendo Funvision. Let's see. Untitled American Football Game from Sculptured Software. Sculptured Software was a very busy studio on the Super Nintendo, having worked on an astronomical number of games, so it's unsurprising that they also have a bevy of canceled projects to their name, including this football game that was never even given a name or even a project code name. Graphically, it looks pretty good for the Super NES. Could even pass as a PS1, early PS1 game. That's how graphically how good that game looks. The discovery of a prototype version of the game revealed that the development was on target to be released in time for the '94 season, seeing as it was already perfectly playable, similar to NHL Stanley Cup in its presentation, an ice hockey simulation made by the same studio. The game was canceled without explanation. Kid Kirby, this is interesting. Nintendo, this was a project Nintendo gave to DMA Design, the studio behind Uniracers. Kid Kirby was meant to be a prequel episode that showed the pink ball in its infancy, focusing heavily on using the Super Nintendo's mouse. Fortunately, the accessory sales didn't meet expectations, and the game wasn't designed to be played with a controller comfortably, so the project was canceled. Quite a few level and sprite designs were put online by one of the former employees at DMA Design, but there are no screen caps to show us how the game would have actually looked. Lakers vs. Celtics in the NBA playoffs. Mentioned in the American magazine GamePro in August '91, the Super Nintendo version was never completed, unlike its Genesis counterpart, and it put a curse on the whole series. The SNES project was dropped for another aborted development, Bulls vs. Lakers in the NBA playoffs. So Lakers vs. Celtics was aborted, then they went to Bulls vs. Lakers, that was aborted, and then finally they got that one in. Mick and Mac as the Global Gladiators from Virgin Games. Having been released on several other consoles like the Genesis, the McDonald's Global Gladiators were set to appear on the Super Nintendo to clean up a world ravaged by pollution. Having even made it all the way to the beta testing stage, we know that the result would have been very close to the Genesis version, which wouldn't have been a bad thing considering the quality of that one, but the project was canceled with no explanation. Mickey's Playtown Adventure, A Day of Discovery from High Tech Entertainment. While its development was entirely wrapped up, Disney decided to cut Mickey's Adventure short. It was designed for younger gaming demographics with puzzles and educational exercises. You guys can't see this because my stupid laptop's in the way, but let's see if I can move it here. Mission Impossible from Ocean. Few details on this adaptation. For the first movie are known, apart from the fact it had its development moved over to the Nintendo 64 from 16-bit consoles. With the same formula as Flashback, this action-adventure made by Delphine Software was supposed to focus on investigation, NPC manipulation, and infiltration. Let's see, Muhammad Ali from Virgin Games right down here. Presented for the first time at CES 93 in Chicago, this Super Nintendo version of Muhammad Ali, a heavyweight boxing developed by Park Place Productions, was supposed to be an evolution of the Genesis version released a year earlier. With bigger boxers and better lighting, it was meant to make use of the console's Mode 7 to have the ring rotate with the fighter's movements. Much like Global Gladiators, also published by Virgin Games, the game would have its port from Genesis to SNES cut short. Let's see what else we got. Let's go to Railroad Tycoon from Micropose. Announced at CES 92 in Las Vegas. Right here. This railroad simulation was scheduled for release in the summer of 93. It was apparently almost fully developed but had its launch postponed to autumn 93 before it fell off the radar altogether. Rap Basketball from Motown Records. Seeing the success of Virgin on the gaming scene, another American music label called Motown Records decided to give it a shot. Digging into their back catalog of artists, including Snoop Dogg, the publisher put forward an urban basketball concept where all the players were famous rappers. A few months into the development, Motown Records backed out of the project. But, interestingly enough, I think I have this game for the SNES. It's called... Where is it? Let's see here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, Rap Jam Volume 1. So let me show you guys. I don't know if this was eventually... Yeah, Motown Games. So this is funny. So they canceled Rap Basketball, but then Motown Games right here, we got Rap Jam Volume 1. I got this sealed, by the way, for 20 bucks. So that's pretty cool. RHI Roller Hockey 95. Oh, let's go to Rayman, first of all. From Ubisoft, still going strong, the first adventure of our armless and legless friend created by Michel Ancel was moved around several times. Here's a screenshot of it. I'll show you guys that. Beginning its career on the Atari ST before being transferred over to the Super Nintendo, then the console's CD add-on, and eventually released for the Atari Jaguar. When the project came to the Super Nintendo, Rayman already bore some similarities to the definitive version, except that this one was meant to be played in co-op mode. Even the storyline was different, starring a young boy called Jimmy who creates a fantasy universe he names Here It's Cool. RHI Roller Hockey 95 from American Softworks. Everyone knows about ice hockey, but few are familiar with its roller skating counterpart, and yet there was a whole professional roller hockey league in America between 93 and 99, and RHI Roller Hockey 95 was meant to be a simulation of the 95 season. There it is. Looks like ice hockey to me. Few details were shared about this project other than the fact that it had an angled top-down perspective and it never made it past the prototype stage, probably because the sport had too small a following. Let's see... There's a game based on The Shadow from Ocean. It's no secret that the publisher and developer Ocean made a reputation for themselves with epic movie adaptations. After RoboCop, The Addams Family, and Batman, a far more obscure hero almost got his own SNES game. Presented as a beat-em-up, The Shadow seems like it could have done the Alec Baldwin movie justice, but Ocean clearly thought otherwise. Let's see. Spot Goes to Hollywood from Virgin Games down here. Following his arrival on the 16-bit console scene, this red dot, an icon of the soda brand 7-Up, returned on the Genesis, Saturn, and PS1 between 95 and 97. The new adventure of Cool Spot in an isometric platformer was meant to come to the Super Nintendo, but like other Virgin productions, the project never made it past the beta stage. Steven Seagal is the final option from Tech Magic. Totally unrelated to any of the movies, the world's favorite reincarnation of a Tibetan Lama almost had his own SNES adaptation. This beat-em-up with shooter sections was meant to feature digitized sprites of the actor and his adversaries, but didn't look like it was going to be anything groundbreaking. Street Dunk from Nichibutsu. This streetball game was meant to have 1v1, 2v2, and even 3v3 gameplay using multi-taps, taking inspiration from all over the place, but especially from NBA Jam. The Nichibutsu project was canceled for reasons unknown. And then there was a Superman game canceled from Sunsoft, scheduled for release at the end of '93. This adaptation starring the superhero from Krypton as he faced his other arch-enemy, Brainiac, would never make it to the market, unlike the Genesis version of this awful side-scrolling action game. Sylvester and Tweety from Sunsoft, another adaptation of a Warner series that never saw the light of day because of Sunsoft going out of business. Despite them having sold many of their other unfinished projects to Acclaim, it seems the progress made with the game wasn't worth resuming in the eyes of its new owner. Tarzan from GameTech, based on the novels and old movies from the early 20th century, Tarzan was being developed by Manley and Associates. It was canceled due to the concerns that many of the animals you had to kill to progress were protected and endangered species. It also wasn't particularly fun to play, according to one of the developers. Interestingly enough, Tarzan I actually have by GameTech for the Game Boy. So that's pretty cool. Tom and Jerry 2 from Alan. Never heard of Alan. You guys can't see this. This totally different version of Tom and Jerry Frantic Antics, originally released in '93 for the Game Boy and Genesis, was far enough into development to be previewed in a German magazine back in the day, but for some reason it was never completed. Toxic Crusaders from Bandai. Toxic Avenger, Toxic Crusaders was set to be an action platformer, first developed around the movie's formula with the hero Toxie wielding an axe. The game would later change direction to be closer to the series, but in a somewhat diluted version. It was also supposed to have the team fighting pollution alongside Toxie armed with a broom. The game was canceled for reasons unknown. And Wile E's Revenge. Before we go to that, I didn't see this. Universal Soldier from Alcalade. While anything but a newcomer to the video game market, Alcalade made quite a few blunders during the SNES era, and the Turrican ports are prime examples, released for the Game Boy, TurboGrafx 16, and Mega Drive. Not satisfied with having destroyed one of the most widely appreciated games on micros, the company decided to repeat the process, porting Turrican 2 to the Super Nintendo but giving it the same name as an action movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, Universal Soldier. While apparently fully developed, Nintendo decided not to greenlight the game, which was just as bad if not worse than the infamous Turrican ports. It just goes to show cancellations aren't always a bad thing. And then Wile E's Revenge from Sunsoft. This sequel to Looney Tunes Roadrunner was meant to put the player in control of the unlucky coyote. Throughout the levels, the Sly Canine had to pick up pieces of a plan for an invention that he would try to use against the Roadrunner in the following stage. With Warner Brothers refusing to have their speedy mascot captured by his eternal enemy, the player would have had to fail in their objective across every level. But Sunsoft went out of business before the project could be brought to fruition anyway. And that's pretty much it. And then the projects that were heard but never seen. Baseball Stars 2 appeared in the list at CES 92 in Las Vegas. Casino Kid 2 appeared in the list at CES 92 in Las Vegas. College football was mentioned in the August 92 issue of Nintendo Power magazine. Earl Weaver Baseball appeared in an ad for the American retailer Chips and Bits that was featured in the May 92 issue of GamePro magazine. The Flash appeared in the list at CES 92 in Vegas. Hudson Hawk was mentioned in the June 91 issue of Nintendo Power magazine. Killer Instinct 2 was mentioned in the April 96 issue of GamePro magazine. Kung Fu The Legend Continues was in development at Park Place Productions, according to Rene Bouton, a former producer at Sunsoft of America. Maniac Mansion 2 was mentioned in the November 91 issue of GamePro magazine. Pocahontas was in development for the Super Nintendo, according to Carl Henrik Skarstedt, a former programmer at Funcom Management. Let's see, Rocket Knight was mentioned in the March 93 issue of Nintendo Power magazine. Super Double Dribble was mentioned in the August 91 issue of GamePro magazine. Super Mario FX was rumored to be the Super Nintendo version of what would later become Super Mario 64, but was revealed to be nothing more than the codename given to the Super FX chip by Dylan Cuthbert. Swamp Thing was announced at CES 92 in Vegas, and Ultima 5 was mentioned in the August 91 issue of GamePro magazine. This book, these series of books are incredible. Oh, this is cool. Wow. Sidney Hunter and the Caverns of Death from Collector Vision. The French company Josh Prod recently published two entitled Sidney Hunter and the Caverns of Death and Unholy Night, the Darkness Hunter. This is cool. I'm going to try to take a picture of this and send it to, what's-his-face on YouTube. Gamester81. I wonder if he did, Sidney. I think he did do that. I know some Mayan game just came out that he did. And then it shows you Super 3D Noah's Ark. and then a non-exhaustive list of unlicensed games. So it gives you that, which is pretty cool. A few emblematic unlicensed games, and that's that. So, guys, thanks for watching. These are great. I would pick them up on Amazon if I was you. I appreciate everyone watching this. Stay tuned for more content coming on the channel.